Last night I jumped back into the second of 3 betas for the new Monster Hunter Wilds game that is going to be releasing on February the 28th. Cool enough, I saw the same tune that I had in the previous beta and I jumped right in there and started chugging along to the quest line. I really didn't plan on doing much other than just working through some of the quests and working on some of my weapon skills to make sure that I had all of the commands down before the base game releases. The first monster available went smoothly. I went out solo and sent an SOS flare ripping into the sky. I enjoy playing with other folks in the group, which is why I am super excited to see the addition of NPC group members. The first time I saw that was available in Wilds, it really made me super happy. There was no more having to worry about finding folks on some of the boards or having to spend time running around by myself hoping that somebody would join my group. I can now rely on some of the NPCs to dive head first and soak up some of that nasty DPS while I lay back and lay down some pew-pews from a distance. So everything was going well, and next up was a monster I haven't seen other than in the teaser trailer, Arkveld. As I mentioned before, I prefer playing in groups, so I jumped in one of the posted quests and headed out with a couple of folks that were already on the mission. As soon as I jumped in the open area, I was like, okay, here we go. I saw him out in the plains with his whips flailing around, supercharges tearing into the ground. Anybody crazy enough to try to sit and eat his damage was instantly getting two-shot. Needless to say, we wiped again, and wiped again, so on and so forth for the next hour. As I progressed with each attempt, I would learn a better strategy of evading and also to use flash pods as a strategic item. Running would also have heal plants readily available, so it really helped save from having to use my own heal pods. And here's the rub. All of this got me thinking, I'm glad he's tough. I'm glad he whooped my ass. I'm glad that it wasn't a pushover, and I'm going to explain why right now. I played World of Warcraft for several years when it first launched back in the 1800s. It completely blew my mind. I'd never seen any game that was like that before. I had played other MMOs, but this just felt different. Some of the older games on the original Nintendo, SNES had minions you would defeat on the way to the end boss of each stage, but this was different. This had elites and big bads alongside of normal minions out in the open. You could no longer predict that after a certain amount of side scrolling, you were close to the mid-stage boss or the end boss themselves. No longer could you just assume you were going to be able to stroll through any area and be able to feel comfortable. This added a new level of interaction and focus to what you were doing when entering unknown areas and forced you to keep your head on a swivel until you familiarize yourself with the new zone. Fast forward to my encounter with Arkveld last night. I've spent several hundred hours on Worlds and Rise respectively, and have been through a slog of getting gear, leveling up gems, etc. to make yourself strong enough to take on some of the world's toughest foes those games had to offer. But last night it hit me. Monster Hunter reminds me of WoW. Both have the mobs that are trolling around, which may or may not aggro to you. You can easily splatter them with minimum effort and no real threat. They do serve a purpose though, whether it be collection, quest, or XP, or maybe even materials for the gear that you need to level up. The next level of mob is the normal minions. They represent the monsters that you can also take down with basic effort, as long as you don't YOLO too much aggro. They also serve a purpose for materials, quest XP, and can even serve as a backdrop to give each individual zone a unique personality. Third are the elites. These big bads troll around with the normal mobs, but normally have more XP and are a lot tougher to down in sticky situations. Think of monsters that are already tough, but have a tendency to run into another zone where it may trigger a turf battle, or they may require specific meals, potions, and weapons to defeat properly. Lastly comes the bosses. They require timing, strategy, and most of all, practice. In Monster Hunter, these can be represented in the later stages of the game with the orange and the purple bros. And sometimes even normal big bads pose this type of threat during different stages of the game. Spending time learning routines, what pods to use, what traps to use, elements are and aren't effective, it's just not really asked, it's required. And there it was right in front of me. Arkveld whooping my butt was a dungeon boss. I had to learn his movements, learn his weaknesses, and in a group I had to rely on my teammates to do the same thing. Even though I didn't down him last night, I felt like I made progress. I can now help others when trying to knock him out. I know Wilds is going to bring a whole new crowd to the Monster Hunter series, and I welcome all of you guys to the world. At the same time, I'm glad they let everyone in the beta meet Archveld and left him as tough as he is. This game isn't going to be a cakewalk. You're going to absolutely nuke some monsters. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get great gear. But every once in a while, there's going to be an Archveld to bring you back down to earth. And this is the time you have to decide for yourself. Are you going to give up, or are you going to persevere? And I hope you do the latter. And I can't wait to meet you guys out in the wilds.